When you look up at the night sky, it can tell you stuff about your future. You might see a lot more than you wanted. But if you have heart, you have hope. And you have heart in you.
I'm Eben Bolter, and I was the director of photography of The Life of Chuck. So The Life of Chuck, on the surface, I guess, is a simple story about an ordinary man's life. But there's the way the story unfolds is very, very interesting. It's told in 3 distinct chapters that go backwards in time. So we start at the end with chapter 3. And without going into too much detail, you know, that's the end of a life. That's about death. That's about the end of a life. It's about dreams. It's about imagination. It's about stories. And we then go backwards in time to these other 2 key points in this character Chuck's life. So we knew we were playing with time. And Mike really wanted to define each chapter with its own look. And we quite quickly decided that we clearly wanted 3 specific feels for each time period, but we also wanted 3 aspect ratios. And that was a very interesting thing philosophically to think about and talk about as to, should we start, you know, widescreen 2:3:9 and end up boxier, or should we do the opposite? And what does an aspect ratio mean? And what does an aspect ratio mean to an audience? And what are the, you know, what's the philosophical effect of an aspect ratio on an audience? And what we settled on was a 2:3:9 aspect ratio for chapter 3 at the beginning. It then goes to a 2:1 ratio for the middle chapter, and then to a 1:8:5 for the end, which is the beginning. And the thing that's really interesting about that is, for people watching at home on a TV, which in the end, this film will get seen at home, the aspect ratio is going to grow. The 2:3:9 is going to open, and it's going to open to end full screen. So the story is going to expand. Whereas in the cinema, the opposite is going to happen. On a 2:3:9 shaped screen, the aspect ratio is going to come in and come in. We knew that we wanted the beginning to feel slightly fantastical. We wanted to feel like cinema. So we went anamorphic, we went 2:3:9 ratio, and we wanted a dreamlike quality. So we shot a lot of stuff in magic hour. We wanted very shallow focus. And the ALFA lenses, I'd seen what Greg had done on the Batman with the ALFA lenses, and that beautiful, you know, oval bokeh, teardrop feeling, dreamlike look was incredibly appealing. You know, we tested those lenses against lots of other anamorphic options, and they just felt the most dreamlike, big movie dream. That was the thing that we kept coming back to. The beginning of the piece is kind of about the end of the world. It's about the end of a life. It's about the end of the world. You know, the world is crumbling away. It kind of feels like the last breath of the universe, is something that Mike kept saying. And 2:3:9, for that sort of scale and that feeling of the world around, just felt poetically correct. Just how you frame a close-up and how much more information you get around a character based on their location and what's happening around them. 2:3:9 just felt perfect for that. The middle chapter, lens-wise, was sort of transitional for us. The middle is all about a big dance number. Tom Hiddleston has this a huge dance number, and we did tons of research on sort of the history of dance and musicals in Hollywood, and we wanted to sort of nod to West Side Story and sort of Technicolor feeling musicals of old. And really interesting thing is doing my research for musicals is just how often you see an actor head to toe. You really, when someone's dancing, you have to see their feet. And as soon as you come in too close, it's amazing how quickly you lose the sort of feel of a dance. And so, yeah, as our sort of transitional chapter into chapter 1, we held on to the ALFA lenses, but I used a slightly deeper stop to be slightly less dreamlike. And we went to the 2:1 ratio just to help transition us to the 1:8:5, what we knew we wanted to get at the end. And the 2:1 ratio felt really great for composing 2 people dancing. And then for chapter 1, we wanted to nod to sort of 1990s American cinema. We wanted to be on wider and closer, to feel really with this boy, down at his eye level, never looking down at him, always, looking up at adults and being with this child. And 185, it gave us just that extra headroom, that extra up and down to feel this character's place in the world, and to the close-ups became a lot more in his head rather than in the room around him. So in sort of basic terms, that's one reason we felt as the world kind of compressed into a boy's life, the aspect ratio should as well. Through pretty extensive testing, and actually by doing the test properly, not really knowing what I was looking at when we looked back at the rushes, and we kept gravitating towards the signature primes, using the impression filters. And what I loved about that is when, in moments where we wanted to enhance the dreamlike quality and get inside a character's head, I could go quite heavy on the impression filters and get a kind of DNA-esque funkiness. But then for wide shots where we wanted to be more clinical and we didn't want funky edges, I could take them out and we could go much sharper. And I thought it was a beautiful lens for that agenda. So yeah, for chapter 1, for the impression filters, we were using the positive impression filters, and we sort of characterized them in 3 levels of strength. And shot by shot, it really would be, okay, let's have a +1 or a +2 or a +3. And there were times where we'd be on a close-up and we just felt like a little bit more distortion would be aesthetically more interesting in a moment, and so we'd say, okay, a +1 or a +2. There'd be maybe a wide shot at night where we wanted to retain detail on the edges, and we'd have it completely cleaned. And I think where we went heaviest with the impression filters was probably the prom. There's this high school dance prom type situation where there's another dance. And even though that's all happening for real, there was a slight heightenedness to it of that, like a sort of teen romance, dream-like scenario happening, even though it wasn't a dream. And we wanted to dial that up a little bit more. So that's where we went the heaviest on the impression filters and really lent into the kind of magic of what was happening there. And they were beautiful. I mean, we really, particularly for that sequence, I think we were on the +2 and the +3 for every single shot. And once in a while, maybe we would put the strongest positive impression filter on and decide we wanted to dial it back. But it was just so quick and easy to do. It was great having that level of control and not having to stop down or anything like that. I really could sort of set the exposure, set the depth of field, and then just add the impression filter for that little bit of magic. What I really liked about the impression filters, and what I think generally at the moment with cinematography, is the ability to make those decisions shot by shot. So things like the impression filters, but you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can be sharp and clinical when you want to be, but it takes 30 seconds to put a filter in and get really, really funky and add that texture. And ultimately, they're just more tools to be creative.